Well, good morning. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I want to talk about the truth of cash, gold, Bitcoin. Maybe we'll get into CBDC a little bit. I don't know. We'll just kind of see where the conversation takes us, because I get a lot of questions on these things. And I've had a couple of questions just recently. Somebody said, on, I don't know, just last video or the one before it, he says, "Oh, how come you didn't get into precious metals?" And somebody else said, "I don't know, a couple of things like that." So I do want to. I've addressed these things in the past. I kind of stayed away from it because people, they have a hard time understanding some of this. Okay, the way and maybe it's because of, where they're coming from. Maybe it's because of what they've heard in the past. Maybe because they don't understand how everything works together macroeconomically. I don't know. But a lot of people are misled on this, especially people in the preparedness world. A lot of people are misled on these things, the value of cash, gold and silver, all things like this. So that's what I want to talk about. Before we get into that, a couple of housekeeping things. Yes, the information for the first annual Integrative Preparedness Stonemont Gathering, get-together, meetup, whatever we want to call it. Actually, I just designed the mug for it. I'll talk about that later on, but not probably on this one. I probably shouldn't even have said that, but that is coming up on July the 13th. It's going to be in the greater Kansas City area. There is a web page about it. To get that web page address, the link, come to the Patreon channel, because I'm not spreading this everywhere. This is not open invitation to just anybody who wants to come by. It's just a filter that I use for security purposes and other things. And it only costs $1 to join us, $1 a month to join us on Patreon. So that's certainly nothing that would keep away somebody who's going to travel to the Kansas City area to come to a get-together. But I'll start posting the link to that on every time I put something on Patreon. Okay, well, every time I put one of my videos on Patreon, so you all can get the information there. I've already put one up about, camping and hotels and things like that, but that'll be put up over there every time I do it. Seemed like there was something else that I was going to talk about, but maybe not. Just want to remind you too that this and all my videos are brought to you by the Stonemont series, my books, the books that I wrote about the complete crash of everything, the complete plan, I call it, for to prepare for, survive, and rebuild after a complete collapse of everything: the reversion, the revival, the renewal, and appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, and hostages to fortune. And I'm about done with the very last chapter of number 7. I haven't announced the title of it here. I have announced it on Patreon. They know, but I'll announce it here one of these days. And I imagine it will be probably available on Amazon and through me by the 1st of July. I would think, because it has to go through a process. I get it done. I send the manuscript in. The printer sends me back a proof copy. I read through the proof copy, try to find all the mistakes that I might have made or things that I want to change around, and maybe I want to say something a little differently, whatever. And then I make the changes and I send it back. They send me another proof copy. I look at it, give it a yes or a no, however many times that takes. Usually just takes a time or two. And then finally I give it the okay, and then it is available for sale. And Amazon has all of my books available in paperback or Kindle or Audible. Or you can get them from me directly, and I love it when people do that. You can get it from me directly through our website, stonemont.us. And then I get to sign them for you and write a little note in and stuff like that. Amazon gets them to you fast. I get them to you more slowly, but I get to make a little note to you, and I like doing that. Okay, let's get back to this. I've talked about these issues a number of times in the past. It's one of the reasons that I, for a short time, put together that Prepping for Prosperity channel. I stopped doing it over there because I thought I'd said pretty much everything I needed to say. You know, it's kind of like, do you ever listen to Dave Ramsey, with whom I disagree on many things? Yeah, I mean, you listen to his show. I used to years ago when he first came on. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing every day, every day, every day. The economics is basic. It's pretty much that. How many ways can you discuss it, right? Really, you can't discuss it because it is what it is. Things work the way they work. And once you've pretty much explained it, that's about all. And so I haven't addressed these things much in the past, but I know that this is a subject that many people are interested in, especially as it relates to preparedness and as it relates to those things like cash. Is your cash going to be worth anything? Oh, yeah, that was the other one. Comment that I had. Your fiat currency isn't going to be worth anything, which I reminded them. I've been hearing that since the 70s, and it still buys me everything that I want, right? And so does yours. Cash, your fiat currency, so-called, gold, precious metals, CBDC, I'm not sure if we'll get into that, but Bitcoin. Okay, so whenever I've said these things, I often get people coming on and saying, well, you're all wet, you don't know what you're talking about, and because they've heard somebody say something or other, and your fiat currency is not going to be worth anything. And in hyperinflation, gold is what you want. You want gold, and I'm going to tell you right now, no, you don't. I'll get into the reasons. And you should invest in, first off, gold is not an investment. If you bought it in the 70s, yeah, if you happen to buy it and then sell it later, and for more, then good. It was an investment, but it shouldn't be looked at like that. Other people say, well, I buy gold as a hedge against inflation. Okay. It's a good way to save wealth. Depends. So many these things depend. So for new people, because I know, by the way, I should have welcomed all the new viewers and subscribers. We have gained over 5,000 subscribers in the last month and a half, something like that. Unbelievable. So welcome to you all. And you may not have heard me talk about this. And so anyway, I get these people, throwing these things out here. And I can tell by the way most of them talk, they don't know what they're talking about. And I don't say that to be unkind. What I mean is they've simply heard this over and over and over and over again on prepper channels, and ads with William Devane, and other people, Sean Hannity. Buy gold through this place. It's the only place that I trust. And if you buy it, they'll send you $10,000 worth of silver. Now, come on. Who believes that's not a hustle? Okay, really? All right. If something is really valuable, you don't have to advertise it to sell it. Simple as that. Its own value will do it. We'll get back to that in a minute. So anyway, this morning, one of the things that I started doing was I went through, I saw what popped up on my feed, and one came up from Canadian Prepper, and he was interviewing George Gammon. If you're not familiar with who George Gammon is, very smart guy. He happens to agree with me on just about everything. So, so of course I think he's smart, right? No, but he's one of the few out there that will actually explain to you how things are besides me. And he's got a huge channel. Okay. He talks about just financial stuff. To be honest, I'm interested in my own financial stuff. I couldn't care less about talking about it for the most part. So that's why I don't do it very much. But he does. He runs a channel, and I suggest you, first off, go watch the one from this morning of Canadian Preppers. It's about an hour long, but it is well worth it. It answers all of the questions that I won't have time to answer here today. If you are really interested in whether precious metals are worth it, what's going to happen to cash, a cashless society, blah, 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 Bitcoin, that's an hour of your life that's going to be a much better investment than pretty much anything you can do. And then go and watch George's channel. He's called The Rebel Capitalist. The Rebel Capitalist. If you want to understand this stuff, go there. I know a lot of people won't do that. That's too bad. The people who have already decided to believe a certain way and won't, they won't accept more information to maybe develop their opinions. They can't be helped, but I hope that you can. The interesting thing, what Gorman did was he took a trip from Santiago, Chile, to Buenos Aires, Argentina. And it was kind of an experiment. He was driving, I think he and a friend. And his goal was to see if he could make it from Santiago to Buenos Aires only using gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Very interesting, right? One of the reasons that it makes it interesting is that Argentina is now going through hyperinflation, about 20% a month. Okay, and one of the things, I occasionally, very very rarely, but occasionally, I'll get a comment by somebody that says, "Well, if you want to know how it really is, if you want to know what it's really like, you ought to watch this guy who was from Argentina," and I forget his name. What was it? I watched a couple of his years ago, and he's an Argentinian. I don't think he lives there anymore, but I forget it was a Modern Survivalist. Or maybe some of you will know. But he talked about what things were going on in Argentina, and so I'll occasionally get somebody, well, you ought to watch this guy. Well, okay. You ought to watch this guy. Okay. This guy just did it recently, went through Argentina trying to use gold and silver. And you know what? I'll cut to the chase on this. People didn't want it. They wouldn't take it. Nobody would take Bitcoin. Finally, he found somebody, I think, that had to, and he went to Bitcoin cafes and tracked people down. And finally, finally, I think, found somebody who said, well, I don't want to buy your Bitcoin, because he was trying to get Argentinian pesos, because that is the currency of exchange. Now, that in itself is a lesson. Here you have a country who's going through hyperinflation of 20% per month, okay, and where it's taking a stack of bills, Argentinian pesos, to pay for lunch, and this is the atmosphere in which we are told that gold and silver is going to be, used as a method of exchange. No, nobody wanted gold and silver. And so finally one guy said, well, I think they had a little better luck with silver, but no real luck with gold. Nobody wanted gold. Finally somebody said, well, I don't want to buy your Bitcoin for some pesos, because they needed pesos to buy lunch, right? And pay for their hotels. And everybody wanted pesos. That's the thing. That is the thing. They wanted the fiat currency, and I'll get back to that in a second. And so finally, this guy says, "Well, I don't want to buy Bitcoin, but I'll buy Tether." So they found someplace else that, this guy would sell them some Bitcoin for some Tether, or sell them some Tether for some Bitcoin, and then having the Tether, they went back to this first guy, and he exchanged their Tether for some pesos, so they were able to go to, have lunch. A couple of very important things here. Regardless of the hyperinflation that the country is going through, people still wanted the fiat currency. Why? Because that is the accepted method of exchange. Now, why is it the accepted method of exchange? We are told, you are told, and this is what I want you to be careful. Don't just believe this stuff just because somebody says it. Just because 1,000 prepper channels say this doesn't make it so. To be quite honest, and I don't want to be unkind, just a lot of them don't know what they're talking about. A lot of them are way out of their area of expertise when they start talking about this, and they're just passing along what they've heard from other people, and that's too bad. That's the way falsehood becomes a truism, that somebody hears something, and then they repeat it, and somebody repeats it. Finally, so many people are repeating it that if you say anything else, you're the one who's wrong. Okay. And as long as you say that, then people think you're right. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Here's the question, and think about it. This is what people will tell you about your so-called fiat currency. And true, fiat currency is a currency that is not backed by anything. It is not backed by anything. But here's what it's backed by. It is backed by people's willingness to take it and exchange it for goods or services. See, and that's probably the best thing to be backed by. The willingness of somebody else to take these little pieces of paper that are essentially credit on the work that you've done, give it to them, and they know they can give it to somebody else for something they want, so they will accept it, right? Okay. Let me ask you this. Have you ever asked yourself what gold is based on? Because they'll make these in this, I think. And Canadian Prepper, I want to give him a lot of credit on this too. He is a proponent of precious metals. I am not. Okay. That's fine. But he asked all of the questions that a person who supports precious metals would and should ask. And he does it very well. And Gorman answers it. He answers all these questions, like I said, in ways that I won't have time to do it. But he answers it as a result of his on-the-ground experience. Okay, so this is not hypotheticals. This is what he discovered while actually trying to use this in a real-world environment. But let me ask. Now, people will say, well, gold has been money forever. No, it hasn't. Gold is not money. There has been a few times in history that it has been money, or it has been used as money. But money is a method of exchange. Doesn't matter whether it's dollar bills, pesos, seashells, little round stones, doesn't matter. That's money. And gold is not money. It can be used as money. It can be used for jewelry. It can be used in high-tech applications, a lot of things. But the idea that gold has always been money is wrong. It's simply wrong. We've been off the gold standard forever, and we still have money. But ask yourself this: what is gold backed by? Have you ever thought about that? Do you ever ask yourself that? What is gold backed by? Well, it's gold. People will say it has intrinsic value. What does that mean? What does that mean? It has intrinsic value. Intrinsic meaning in and of itself, right? Okay, well, it can be pretty, it's malleable, it can be made into ornamentation, jewelry, all sorts of things. Does that make it valuable? Well, to an extent it can, to a craftsman, a goldsmith, right? But it's people's agreement that it is worth something that makes it worth something. If you looked back and saw how much gold has gone up in the last year, I guess. I don't keep track of it because I'm not interested in gold. I tell you what brings a much greater return, and that is your own business. You need to invest in something, invest in yourself, invest in your business. That'll bring you a much greater return than gold. But anyway, I don't pay attention to it. But if you've seen the rise over the last 6 months, a year, something like that, it has been driven by people buying it. Not an increase in its value, okay, or not an increase in its value as a result of the decrease in the value of the dollar, okay. There's we can get into those weeds, but we won't. It is the price has been driven by people buying it. Simple as that. And a lot of the buying was done by countries, and here again, you will hear people use this as a selling point. Well, you need to buy gold because, or precious metals, whatever, because the major governments are buying it. You know, China, the BRICS countries, all this, they're buying gold because they know something. Well, you know, that's a funny way that people use also, like, they know something. Do they know something you don't know? Well, yeah, usually they do. They know a lot of things you don't know, and I don't know, okay? They know what they're going to do. We don't know what they're going to do. But Gorman makes a good point here, and he explains. He says these countries, they're not buying up the gold, which is driving up the price. because they're afraid of a collapse of the dollar. As a matter of fact, the dollar, everybody still wants the dollar. Around the world, everybody wants the dollar. They also wanted it in Argentina. Okay, they wanted dollars instead of pesos, even though pesos was the daily means of exchange. They much preferred dollars because of the stability of the dollar. And I know right now there's going to be people go, the dollar's not stable. Well, you don't understand comparative stability. Okay, so the reason that there are buying up gold and American assets is because of the fact that we froze Russia's assets. That's why they're buying gold, because they know that they can store their wealth there, their assets in gold, and the United States, who has shown that they will put a lock on other countries' assets, can't get to it. Did you know that? Think about it. That's why the countries are buying gold. They don't need gold for anything. They're not making that much jewelry. Okay, they're not making that many cell phones that they need gold for. They are buying it for international exchange. And it's not a consumer level exchange. There's something else that I want to throw in here, because I can't cover everything. I do want to cover one more thing, but I encourage you again, go watch this whole video of Canadian preppers with George Warman. And you will get an education. And he's into it a lot more than I am. I've already exhausted my interest on this, to be honest, because I've explained this before, but I just wanted to share it with you all and recommend that other video for you. Really, if you're still confused about this, that's going to clear up everything. So realize that the value of something rests entirely on someone else's willingness to take it in exchange for a good or a service. That's it in a nutshell. That's economics in a nutshell. That's commerce in a nutshell. And I'll conclude it with this one thought, and that is, and I've said this before, the only thing that people, and I think he mentions this, well, two thoughts. The only thing that people want gold for, they don't want gold. Nobody wants gold. They can't do anything with gold. They want the goods or the services it can buy, right? So knowing that, having those things that you would otherwise pay for with gold, having those things takes you out of this need for gold. Okay, I've said before this, that if I had all the food and you had all the gold, I would soon have all the food and all the gold, and you'd have a little bit of my food. Okay, and I'll put it more so it's not just between you and me. The person with all of the gold will be the slave of the person with all the food after they have exchanged all their gold for a little bit of food. And if you doubt me on that, read the story of Joseph. Okay, I've done a sermon on the story of Joseph, and it's not what most people think. Maybe I'll do another one here. No, it is not the preparedness lesson that most people think when they only read the first part of that. It is about what happens. Well, I'll leave it. You can read it yourself, or maybe I'll come back and do another one on that. But think about that. Watch those videos. It will give you the education you need if you are thinking about buying gold. Okay, and my advice, well, this would be a good time to remind you also, I write about it all in this. Nowhere in here do I talk about gold, silver, precious metals, CBDCs. I never got around to CBDCs. That's all right. Bitcoin or anything. This is about a complete collapse of everything. And how a prepared family, as a result of their preparedness, meaning they had stuff and skills, okay, and property. They didn't have any gold. As a result of their preparedness, were able to continue to live a high-quality life even after the collapse of everything, and then rebuild, and, just as importantly, help others, right? Helping others, dealing with others. In the Stonemont series, I talk about how they create an entire system of a credit system of work for labor, or labor for credits, and how those credits are able to be spent within the kind of enclosed community that they have there before they grow. And I explain an entire emerging economy. So there you have it. Did I remind you? Do I have to hold them up again? They're available on Amazon. The link's down below. Paperback, Kindle, or Audible, or directly from me through our stonemont.us website. Love it when you guys do it that way, because I love seeing who's buying my books. I love to say to John, to Mary, to anybody, blah, blah, write a little note in there, and I really like doing that. Remember that the information for the summer get-together, the gathering, the Integrative Preparedness Stonemont Gathering coming up July 13th in the Kansas City area, information on that is over on the Patreon channel. If you're not with us on the Patreon channel, I put everything over there that I put on YouTube, plus a lot of other stuff. If you're really interested in preparedness, you should be over there, and I hope to see you over there. So you all have a good day. Watch these videos that I talked to you about. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.